you break this down into 5 performance categories.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like is you're trying to define this so that somebody can't just say you're a high performer.
Mentality, cognitive ability, mastery of emotions, social interaction. The last one that everyone forgets about is everybody's too busy climbing the ladder, personal health.
Mm-hmm.
A key category of performance. When we looked at this, we said, it's not just about career either. It's about life. If we can be high performing humans, if we can build better humans, then that just translates into the job. It translates into the family life. It translates into the friendships, right? And that's what we want.
Nobody really knows that it's 3:00 past my afternoon nap time. So I'm a little fussy, a little cranky, but I'm here with my friend, Aaron Salko. And Aaron is a newer friend to me, met through some other common friends, and welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for making the trip to Michigan from sunny New Jersey.
Yeah, listen, I thought you would have turned the sun on for me a little bit.
I tried. Yeah, I actually tried to do that or just get a little bit of snow, and I got neither for you. So I'm sorry about that. But, I was thinking back to the first time that we met. We met at a friend of ours. We have cottages in the same area. Petoskey, Michigan area. And I stopped over to meet you and a couple of other buddies of our common friend, Nick. And walk in the door, and here's this guy, talking about taking a run. He wants to run down this enormous hill, down to the lake, take a swim. And that wasn't the hard part. It was the fact that you wanted to then run. You were going to run back up the hill. Yeah. So I knew that we had a high performer on our hands. Now, I wasn't sure, though, if you were the high performer or if what I was comparing you to was just like maybe setting you up for excellence. Because
the hungover buddies, you mean?
Your hungover buddies were all passed out on couches, and then you were, looking to go rip a run with Nick, who's Army officer, former helicopter pilot, blah blah blah.
And the second before we jumped in the lake, he said, "You're really taking me out of my comfort zone." I'm like, "You fly helicopters."
He's never had a comfort zone. Come on. So that's great. So knew you were a high performer, but didn't know until you told me that you wrote a book called The Ninth Stratum. We got it right here. And that you're a Vistage speaker. You're also a speaker that goes into, and a trainer that goes in with your partner, Kelly, to speak in organizations and helping them drive high performance. But you also have a real full-time day job on top of it all.
Yep. Yeah, we're contracted with a company called Stephen Gould Corporation, a large global sourcing outfit. Been with them for 25 years.
Fantastic.
And under Stephen Gould is really where I had to hone my own skills to get good at that job, which I had no business doing when I came out of college with a sports medicine, physical therapy background.
Okay.
Sitting in front of CEOs, doing deals, negotiating, packaging deals, and managing people's supply chains.
So tell us a little bit more about that. So you work with what type of companies, what type of people?
All kinds. So our general focus is packaging products.
Okay.
But we're a solutions expert. And so basically we have this expansive network of global manufacturers. We have designers and quality managers on staff, and we use our talent to basically bring our clients' ideas to life. We also help them with the iteration and ideation of the packaging designs, the displays, even the product themselves.
Okay.
So it's a very entrepreneurial in sales environment, and that really requires a level of performance because every salesperson that works for Stephen Gould really has to do a lot. They wear a lot of hats. Everything from sourcing to marketing to going out and building your portfolio. So you're cold calling, you're trying to solicit business, and you're starting from the ground up. So it takes a lot to do that. There's a lot of learning curve to it.
I'll bet. How many clients do you personally serve?
So I'm a regional manager there now, and that I oversee 4 offices.
Okay.
With multiple sales agents and sales managers in those offices. And so really, I don't know the number, but the diversity of our client base is huge. everything from medical device to candy to aerospace. You name it, we're doing it at a high level.
So my guess is you have to start off as a business analyst when you first are walking into an organization that either invites you in or that you've found your way into. Yeah. And they typically have a product that they're looking to sell, whether it's retail or wholesale. Do you do both types of packaging?
Both types.
Okay.
And we actually help them get their products on the shelves of many of the big box stores in America.
Gotcha. So that's where we're talking about the whole solution piece. It's maybe even product. So it's product placement. Mm-hmm. Is it the displays as well?
Displays as well. So we'll actually take their product in, put it into our packaging, fulfill it, and then get it to all the retail locations that's necessary.
Great.
Big time turnkey operation.
So a client can be good at what it is that they do.
We want them to be good at what they do.
Like, and then let us handle that. Take care of that.
Yeah, let us handle that stuff. And we have a massive amount of talent on our teams too, from engineers to designers, to quality managers, to subject matter experts that really help us do our job well.
Great. So you grew yourself then inside of that organization from, like you said, you start off with a sports medicine, physiology degree. You come out, you end up getting into this business.
Yep.
And fish out of water. Walk us through that, how that happened.
Well, basically my background too, from my childhood, my dad was a master's degree in psychology. And my mom was very creative. She was a chef.
How do you feel about that?
Well, there's a lot of Jedi mind tricks played.
That's my psychology question.
Yeah, exactly. How do you feel about that? What did you do today? So yeah, we would, we grew up in this very baby boomer household.
Okay.
Where work was what we did, and everybody wanted acknowledgement for the work. I was washing dishes at age 7. And that propelled me through sports in high school and into college. And I did get injured when I was in college, and that's how I found physical therapy. Okay. And I said, wow, this is a great career.
What sport were you playing?
Baseball.
And at what level?
Baseball, D1 at Seton Hall.
Okay.
And basically, just injury took me out, and I said, okay, we're done with that. And I had to lean into what's next. And what was next was, I had this background of, I always loved psychology. It was always like a fascinating thing to understand how humans work. And biology was also my favorite subject. So I was able to take both of those. And at a young age, I always was fascinated with my own performance and like, how do you get better? I was a small kid. And so leaning into the ability to train our bodies to get to different levels, to be faster, to be stronger. I learned that at a young age when a magazine showed up at my parents' restaurant called Muscle and Fitness. I was like, what's this? And I saw that and I started reading it. And I gathered all these tools up, all these weights and stuff. And I used to run the program every night in my room right after dinner. And I saw development, and I saw myself getting faster and getting bigger. And it helped me captain many of my sports teams and really showed me the power of one of my favorite performance-based skills, which is discipline, and how discipline is a muscle and you can use it to your advantage. And that propelled me into college. And when I got out of college, I started doing rotations in hospitals, and I was talking to one of the therapists. They said, hey, what can I make here? Because I have like 7 years of college school bills to pay for here. And they said, well, at this point, you'll make X because the market's pretty flooded. And I was like, X is not going to work.
Yeah, that'll take me 45 years to pay back.
It scared the hell out of me, actually. I was like, oh boy. And my buddy was working for this company, Stephen Gould. And I grew up in the restaurant business too. So I was always good with the general public.
Sure.
Never really had a sales job. And he said, why don't you come check this out? And he said, you can build your own portfolio. It's very freeing. You're basically an entrepreneur. And I said, that sounds like what I want to do. And I called my mom. I said, hey, Ma, that's 7 years of college. I'm going to go sell boxes. I think she fell over at that point. But I leaned into it, and I got into the job, and I started to study the high performers in my organization. What did they do?
Yep.
I did what I always did. I leaned into books and read books about manufacturing and sales itself. And then I started to look outside of my organization. What's your favorite
sales book?
What isn't? I started with you're gonna laugh at this, but it was really the body language books, by Joe Navarro, but what our bodies are saying. My favorite sales book, because what is sales? Sales is really about reading the other person and understanding what they want and how. It's not about what we want, right? It's about how do we service them, get what we want. And anybody who's entering into sales, I would highly recommend. There's a bunch of sales books out there. Dale Carnegie wrote How to Make Friends and Influence People.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yep.
Great books too. But when you know how to interact with the other human, when you know what that other human's thinking through the nonverbal cues that they're giving you, man, it's life changing. So anyways, I started to study all these high performers, and I began to take what I learned and apply it in the job. And I got really, really good at the job. So good, I was allowed to go into the Pittsburgh market by myself, open up the territory there, because that was the path to management. And I became a manager there. And we started doing really well out there. And then there was an opening that the organization gave me an opportunity to take over in their corporate headquarters back in, at the time, it was Whippany, New Jersey. And I said yes, moved back to New Jersey. And that's where I've been ever since. And my sphere of influence kept expanding. And I began to teach what I knew to the people that I onboarded. My job is to look for talent, onboard it, and train it for a very high performing role. And during that time, this is 25 years I've been with this company. Early on, I was a manager. During that time, I started to have to break down, what are these people? How do we train for this?
Right.
And what are the skills that we need to become this high performing individual?
I'm curious, and through that part of the journey, what did you start to recognize about what needs to be already built in to certain people?
Are you talking about innate?
I'm looking at innate. Yeah,
innate skills. So we do a lot of dissecting of this in our we call them performance strategy sessions. These are things we do for organizations and through Vistage. And everybody says innate skills. Well, innate skills really come from our environment, our, who we grew up around, who was the influence, what we learned. We talk about a lot, like, people say, oh, I have a temper. My dad had a temper. My brother had a temper. I have a temper, right? And, as Kelly says it best, my business partner, Kelly, she says, it's not the same genetics as like we all have green eyes. Temper is a behavior that we've learned, and we can change that behavior. But we have to have two things that nobody can give us: desire and effort. Right? We don't have desire and effort, we're not going to have the starting box. And so, basically, with these skills, we now train these. We show these people that, hey, you may have these behaviors that you're using as a crutch. Just something. Hey, it's just who I am. I'm unorganized. It's just who I am. Well, that's not good enough, right? Because you can learn organization. And now we then coach them into, here's how you can break these processes down and begin to understand these skills at a higher level.
So do you believe innate skills really even exist, or do you think everything is somewhat trainable?
I think there are things from my background and the curse of knowledge. I'm going to say the only things innate are our physical abilities. The behaviors I do not believe are.
Okay.
People might disagree with me on that. That's just my own personal belief. I'm
not here to argue yet. I want to hear the rest of what you have to say. So I don't want to argue too much early on. So working for Stephen Gould, running that first division. When did you join in? Because you're a Vistage member, correct?
Yeah.
So you joined Vistage peer-to-peer executive group?
Yeah, I think it was right around 2016, 17.
Okay, so a while.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then that was where your mentor started to encourage you to take what you're doing in your regular day job and start to parlay it into something more.
Yeah, well, I had been in Vistage all the while, doing these basically we called them sales strategy sessions for the people that I was overseeing. And these sales strategy sessions really encompassed all aspects of human performance and then bundled it up for a sales environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize that. And when I moved back from Pittsburgh to New Jersey, I basically needed a stunt double. And that's where Kelly Johnson came into play. She became a project manager for me to watch my portfolio out in Pittsburgh that I had developed. All the while I set up shop and began to rebuild the New Jersey territory.
Got it.
And so, Kelly was like, what do I do? Like I said, all right, just follow me around and we're just going to figure this out. Because I didn't know, and she was a copious note taker. I was not. And,
but you could be with discipline and effort.
You're right. And that is, thank you for that.
You're welcome. That's okay. You can point out a bunch of things I can do too.
It. No, but you're right. And, we would do these sales strategy sessions and, she would be like writing notes and be like, hey, next time I think this is really something you should key in on. And so you're talking like 10 years of notes. And then COVID hit. And, we were all home shored. I was miserable. Like worst thing you could do is stick me in a house and trying to manage.
You need people.
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to manage the emotions of people and you're trying to keep them stimulated and keep them moving forward, albeit there's this horrible thing that's going on in the world. And so we tried our best to keep everybody talking and everybody moving forward and coming up with new ideas and how to sell within this environment. And it just got so wearing and so dull. And I was on the phone with Kel one day and she's like, what, dude, what's wrong with you? I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'm checked out. This sucks. Like, it sucks for everybody, but I'm just really having a hard time with it. She goes, okay. She goes, well, it's time to write the book then. I said, what book? She goes, dude, look at our OneNote. She goes, look at all the sales strategy sessions. She goes, you have somewhere in there, you have chapters. Like we break this thing down and I know there's things in there. So we began to look at it. I was like, holy shit, there really is. There's a lot of merit here.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And so I tried my best right from the start. And if the file, after I pass away, the files will be released. But until then, nobody will ever see the first chapter of the Ninth Stratum because it was absolutely horrible. Think Wolf of Wall Street meets Glengarry Glen Ross.
Okay.
Awful. And so I realized I needed help. I love to write, by the way. My aunt was an English teacher. She taught me everything I knew about creative writing. And so it wasn't my lack of desire to write, but I never wrote a book before. And so my Vistage chair at the time, she said, hey, my neighbor is an editor. I said, I'd love to meet him. And so Gavin became my editor and he was a great coach. One thing to know about Aaron Salko is I'm very coachable. You tell me I'm doing something wrong, I'm going to figure it out.
I have that in my notes. Yeah. I'm trying to find it here. What did you say? You said something, and we'll get back on track here. Something about people's coachability. What was that? You talked about that as being a real skill. I don't have it in these notes. I must have had it in something else.
Yeah, coachability is a big time skill.
Yeah, and we've got some people that I work with, and that's my biggest compliment to them. As I say, the fact that you're coachable, is really your superpower.
1,000%. Open-mindedness and coachability. Two major superpowers. Yeah,
I mean, because you're really, you talk about in your stuff, which we'll get into here in just a sec, is, the emotional control, right? The emotional stability. And, if somebody can hold on to their emotions enough to listen to say, why is this person trying to coach me? It's not because they don't want good things. They want good things for you. Right. They want the outcome to be good for you. They want you to feel what a win is going to feel like.
1,000%.
Right. So
sometimes it's the coaching though, we've all had coaches. If we've played sports, we've all had coaches.
Yes.
Some coaches yell. Other coaches use empathy and things of that nature to really get you to listen.
I retired my sports career, my semi-professional sports career in the rec leagues. So they gave juice boxes and orange slices. So all my coaching was very positive that I got.
You're like, here, there's a popsicle.
I didn't stay in long enough till then they were tough on you.
That's awesome. Yeah, but it's one of these things, like sometimes feedback, sometimes coaching can come across as critical or being criticized, and that can sting, and that can also shut the person down.
Mm-hmm.
So the type of coaching is important that you get.
I've been hearing a lot lately about the knock. When an employee knocks on your office door and says, "Got a minute?" and you immediately know it's some sort of IT incident. But Oxium IT can help. Whether you're having a problem, need consulting, an upgrade, or a managed IT approach, they focus on preventing cyber attacks and proactive solutions that deliver results. My friend Matt Loria and everyone at Oxium are ready to help before or after you get the knock. Visit Oxium.com and let Oxium IT help you outsmart chaos.
Tell me what the book is really trying to tell people, because Ninth Stratum, your guide to high performance. What's the biggest misconception that when people look at that cover and they go, "I'm not going to read that," or "Oh, I want to read that"? But
who doesn't look at that cover and doesn't want to read it?
I mean, I wanted to read it. Just thought if only I could read,
No. So where it came from, and the concept of the book came from, was I was always searching for mentorship, and I realized, after a while, that I don't need one mentor. All these people who are a part of my life are my mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always joined like cohorts, executive groups and like Vistage. And I was in one of these executive groups one day, and I was in my early 30s, and we were talking about some provocative things in business. And the coach, the mentor that I at the time looked at me and said, she called me out in front of my peers, and she said, "Aaron, you're a high performer. What would you do in this situation?" And again, going back to my youth, that drive for acknowledgement was always there. However, never really got it. And that was like, holy shit. Yeah. There it is.
That felt good.
Yeah. She called me a high performer. Like, yes, finally, somebody acknowledging this. And it felt really, really good for about 5 seconds, because what I felt was my ego go through the roof. And I felt like this thing, like I said, this person just called me a high performer. But what criteria did she use to determine that I was high performing? And who's the governing body of high performance? And by the way, did she just set me up for failure because now I believe I've arrived and maybe I don't have to perform at any higher level. Maybe I've reached my pinnacle of performance. And in that very moment, I realized that this label that we give people, like, how many people have you called a high performer in your career? We've all done it.
Yeah,
right?
Handful at least.
Yeah, you've probably been called a high performer. I mean, it's a label. And it's a label that really can mess with somebody's psyche, especially if it's used without framework. If it's used, in malpractice.
Well, isn't this just like when you tell a kid, and I'm gonna botch this, but oh, you're so smart, right?
Yes. You don't do that.
No, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to say, "You worked really hard. I saw you working really hard, and then you got the reward, which is the high grade."
Exactly. And so we looked at this, and I was like, that was the day. That was like a very pivotal moment where I said, "This isn't good. Like, can't just have this word be loose. It means too much." I felt it. I felt my psyche. I felt my ego, and we need to define it and build a framework so that those who want it have a pathway they can follow at it.
Yeah.
And, that's where this whole concept, the whole thing came from.
So, and what I like about it is it's not just a motivational book. This is installation. It's a performance operating system, as is what I wrote in my notes here, right? It's like, you break this down into 5 performance categories. And what I like is, you're trying to define this so that somebody can't just say you're a high performer. So what are those? And if you don't have them, I got them on my cheat sheet here. So
mentality, cognitive ability, mastery of emotions, social interaction. The last one that everyone forgets about because everybody's too busy climbing the ladder, personal health, a key category of performance. And so that, when we looked at this, we said, it's not just about career either. It's about life. If we can be high performing humans, if we can build better humans, then that just translates into the job. It translates into the family life. It translates into the friendships, right? And that's what we want, if you.
Well, yeah, because nobody, you don't want to be a great sales guy, business guy, but a terrible dad.
Toxic performer, right? Those are the toxic people. You're right. Yeah. And so, and by the way, as you said, it's an operating system. You're right. This is not a book you read for motivation.
I am a high performer. You walk away.
Go.
I'm awesome.
I do that. Right. Yeah. It's like, there is motivational components to it. Because if not, who the hell would want to read it? Right. Yeah. But what it is, we try to install the idea of high performance and the framework of high performance so that you think and act differently. And I always hated when people said, well, just go do this because I did it and I'm successful. That is the farthest thing from this book.
Well, it's kind of like when your parents say, because I said so.
Because I said so. Yeah. What I put in here is I used my background in the sciences, in the psychology, in the human physiology, in the biology of the body, to be able to understand it so that you can gain a competitive edge. And it's everything from, like you said, mastering your emotions to communication, all the way up through visionary thinking and why everybody in an organization should be a visionary.
Would you like to walk through on the performance categories and give some examples, under each of these?
Yeah, if you listen, I memorize a lot of things.
Yeah.
The big list.
Obviously, I got the list right there.
Yeah. So under mentality, right? You have drive, ownership, personal ownership, which that's accountability, right? Confidence, self-discipline, humility, curiosity. These are some of the key ones. There's a bigger list than this, but these are some of the keys of.
Is this where the 45 skills?
These are where the 45 skills come into play.
So you've got your 5 categories, right? You've got your 9 stratums, which is basically from totally unaware of something up to mastering it, and all the different stratums in between. So obviously, everything we learn, we start off in some place down here of never knew about it, know about it, seeking more information about it, et cetera. Right. And I'm botching it.
You're spot on.
Until you're finally mastering it and teaching it.
Yep, you're spot on. And that's when we looked at how to measure it. We had to define it, obviously, but then we looked at how to measure it. We looked at grades, and that didn't work because grades are labels. Grades make you, they elicit emotion. We looked at Likert scales, like your employee performance reviews, and those are very subjective. And so we said, we got to build our own. And we basically built it off of how humans learn. Where when you're unaware, like, I have a temper, who cares? Whatever. And then, and then you get to that second stratum where you're now aware, like, I have a temper and I get it, but I'm not changing. And then the third stratum is really one of the most critical stratums where somebody comes up to you and says, hey, your temper, your lack of composure is really affecting your performance and potentially your staying power here at this organization. And that's the aha moment. That's the third stratum. It's like, whoa, okay, I got to fix this. Fourth stratum, we look for the tools. What are the books I can read? What are the videos I can watch? Who are the coaches I can talk to? Fifth stratum, we start to use the tools. Watch the video, talk to the coach, read the book.
Now, would you argue that most people stop at that fourth?
I argue that we are perpetually stuck in the fifth.
Stuck in the fifth.
Yeah, because we're sitting there on TikTok.
We're saying we learned it.
Yep.
Now what's say again the fifth?
Yeah. So we look for the tools, which is fourth. Fifth is we're learning it, right?
Okay.
And so we're absorbing knowledge in the fifth. And when we look at YouTube videos, and we look at TikTok, and we look at all these things, and people are like, oh yeah, I do that or whatever. Yeah, they got the knowledge in there, but nobody really applies it. Puts on the ground. And the sixth is also a critical stratum, which is when we put the boots on the ground, when we test our knowledge. And that's scary because we usually are not good at it. It's messy.
So that's applying. And then seventh is practicing. What's the difference between the two?
Applying is applying is that leaping off point
like
where
you're trying it.
Yeah, like for the first time.
And then practice is like I'm in training.
Yeah, I'm in training.
I keep going. I'm gonna try to get better.
Have you ever played a musical instrument?
Piano.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I sat down at a piano. It was like ding, 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 right? But then that's sixth stratum. All right, I bought the piano. I learned the notes. Now I'm playing it, right? And then the seventh is practice. And then that eventually leads you to the eighth stratum where you're highly competent. You're very confident in the skill. You know when to use it. You rarely make mistakes with it. And you've developed your own process. So you know how to use the skill, and you have an internal process you go through and an external process you go through to apply that skill. And so that's the eighth stratum. And we see a lot of high performers and high potentials hover in the eighth stratum. The difference between the eighth stratum and ninth stratum is teaching. You've been able to break down your process and easily teach it to others. And that's when you're a performance leader. That's who we want in our organizations. That's who we want in our networks, because these are the people that move mountains. These are the difference makers, because they're not just good at something. They're showing others how to do it at the high level.
Well, isn't that where life fulfillment finally comes to? I mean, from learning it all the way through, then teaching it and passing it on.
Yeah, man.
That's awesome.
Yep.
It's funny. I've skimmed the book, watched a bunch of your videos, and it did not come together for me until just right there of like, that's what we're ultimately all real. That's where kind of the happiness really comes in, right? Because the rest of it is just the journey, right? And then until you've passed it on, it doesn't feel like you're complete.
Yeah. Once you teach, and you'll notice on those 45 performance-based skills, not one of them is a career-based skill, right? We had to eliminate those because.
Right. Okay. So back to the mentality.
Yeah.
Drive, ownership, confidence, discipline, humility, curiosity.
Yep.
Those apply.
Yeah.
The mentality piece
these
applies
are
everywhere.
All deemed soft skills.
Yep.
Right.
But I did what I do often to folks that I'm talking with here, is where I pull them off track a little bit.
Sure.
We were going to go through on these 5 performance categories on the cognitive abilities.
Sure.
We got organization, focus, critical thinking, problem solving, vision, the mastery of emotions, composure, patience, self-awareness, coachability, optimism, social interaction. We've got communication, listening, empathy, trust, influence, likability, personal health, appearance, sleep, nutrition, physical activity, mental well-being.
Yep.
And so I don't think that's not all 45.
It's a good summation though,
but it's a heck of a summation.
Yep.
And who can argue that each of those categories is necessary if you're ever going to arrive at the ninth stratum?
Right. And listen, no one has to be great at all of the skills. It's very hard, right? However, there's a couple ways you can use this. In organizations, we teach organizations how to use it specific to roles. So you can look at a high performer, very much like indexes, right? Mm-hmm. You can look at a high performer in a role, and you can actually give them this and say, what makes you really good at your job? Mm-hmm. And they'll go boom, 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 boom. Yep. Okay, there's your index. There's your baseline, right? And now you can begin to interview for that baseline. You can begin to search for talent with that baseline. You can begin to coach for that baseline. So that's how we use it. And in life, what we try to bring to the table with these 45 performance-based skills in the 5 categories of human performance is an awareness, mm-hmm. right? You don't have to be good at all of them. However, if you're aware of what these truly do for you as a human and how these are important to your performance, you're just that much better.
Sure. Sure. So let's go to one of the categories essentially here. So you mentioned like health, presentation, emotional control as real performance variables, right? And those are kind of all things of how you show up.
Yes.
Talk about that, and talk about if you don't have any one of those, how that shows up negatively, maybe undermines trust, maybe undermines your ability to influence. Talk about that stuff.
Yeah. So I can take an angle here with you. As we identify high performers and we identify these skills, a third group emerged. They were called toxic performers.
Okay.
And these are, the perfect example. You have a salesperson crushing it, multi-million dollars in sales, one of your best. However, when they get back in the office environment around the teams, everybody walks on eggshells. They kick and scream until they get their way. They're not a team player, right? That's an example of a toxic performer. Mm-hmm. And there's 9 different ones that we've identified. I like the number 9, I guess. So that's where that came from. But that's what you see when you have deficits or you're deficient in these skills. And the big thing to realize is even the toxic performers, when you look at these specific archetypes of toxic performers, mm-hmm. you see the deficiencies in certain skills. And these people are not defective, they're just deficient. And so if they have desire and effort, we can coach them into getting out of that toxic performing mentality mm-hmm. or behavior, and into someone that really is championed by the organization and their peers. And so, those are really how we look at some of these skills. And I love the two categories you're talking about, mastery of emotion and personal health. Mm-hmm. I believe they are intertwined. Our health, our sleep, our nutrition, the way we exercise, or if we do or if we don't, and our mental health, all have to do with a lot of how we are emotionally putting ourselves out there as leaders, as parents, as friends and colleagues. And so there's this great intertwining of these two categories that I believe when you really focus in on them, you can move mountains and really get rid of some of these behaviors and transcend who you might have been at one point. Mm-hmm. I love to talk about sleep. We'll talk about sleep for 4 hours.
Let's do it.
Let's talk
not for 4 hours, but let's talk about sleep.
Everybody looks at sleep as this, human function. We have to sleep. We just sleep. But what if I told you that sleep is not just a biological function, it's an activity. Mm. And so start thinking it as an activity. And it's an activity that we can get really good at if we understand the body and the mind and how to perform highly in our sleep. The way we restore ourselves, the way we clear away the fog, and what that impact has on our performance the next day, not only in our focus and our energy, but also how our emotions translate to the outside world. Too many people, I've talked to so many people and they're like, I get 5 hours sleep a night. And they're like, I'll have 2 glasses of wine a night. I sleep great. And if you really dove into the science of sleep, you can understand that you might be unconscious, mm-hmm. which is what alcohol does. It's a sedative, right? However, what it's limiting you to do is get into those, third phases of sleep, the deep sleep and that REM sleep that is truly, the most important part of our lives as humans. And you can translate all these neurological disorders to, poor sleep and inability to get to sleep. And, but if we're not focused on how to sleep and putting ourselves in a position to get good sleep, it affects our performance on a massive scale. Mm-hmm. Our irritability, ability to focus. And so, doing things like caffeine. Caffeine is one of these. I love coffee. Drink coffee?
Decaf.
Decaf? You're just off the...
Yep, totally off.
Good for you. You probably sleep like a baby. You track your sleep?
I do track my sleep. Yeah. I actually was, when you were saying that, my obsession is make sure that I get home at the end of the day to charge my watch so that I can have my watch on while I'm sleeping because I love to see the high sleep score.
Yeah.
I mean, it really motivates me.
Yeah.
And I go to bed, I try to go to bed at,
give me your sleep routine. Let's do this.
I do my best to be asleep by 10, in bed by 10.
Good. Nice.
And then up by between 6 and 6:30.
Great.
That's the goal.
That's awesome. And how do you, like when you wake up, are you hitting the snooze button?
Sometimes. I mean, my wife will tell you though that very often I'm just like up and have way too much energy.
Yeah.
You know, I just kind of go.
You probably wake up once in a while without the alarm.
I do. Yeah. In fact, I noticed that if I wake up without the alarm, I can't remember what the metric is, but I was reading about it that
Are you coming out of REM?
I'm coming out of REM and it's the optimal time to be awake. Yeah, and I realized that if I wake up without the alarm clock, my energy is completely different.
Yeah.
And so I also snooze button, which I used today because I was off of my schedule last night. And man, using that snooze button, I've been off all day. Yeah. Been off all day. So when I was joking when we started off, it's 3:00. I'm kind of cranky, a little fussy. I'm not even joking, right? Because I needed my alarm clock. I hit snooze a bunch of times. I actually moved my workout from the morning. It's already scheduled for after you and I are done.
Your whole day's screwed up, right?
My whole day's screwed up. But I mean, and I know I got to get my workout in, and I'll probably get a cold plunge in to try to do a reset.
That'll reset. Yeah.
And it's crazy. And then the other day I had my cold plunge was out of commission for a few days while I was disinfecting it and cleaning it. Yeah. I didn't have an accident in it or anything like that. It just got a little skanky after a while. And, so I didn't have my cold plunge set up. Yeah. Well, I set it back up and then I plunged too close to bed.
Oh,
and that's
a heavy stimulus.
That's a problem for me. And, and it took, it was about 3:00. I could feel my arms finally got warm again. And then about 4:00 in the morning, my legs finally got warm again. And I thought like, okay, I'm finally sleeping again. But I knew I just did it way too close to
you
gave
bedtime. Yourself a shot of adrenaline.
Yeah, was not a smart move. Yeah. But it is a great thing. Like if you've got a mid afternoon, where you've got a little slump, I'll go do a cold plunge, and then I'm good for the whole evening of activities, whatever I have to do for work or whatever, or go to the kids' stuff or whatever. Yeah. But no, I think it's transformative, and the going to sleep at the right time or same time.
In the environment too.
Yep. And I'm off a little bit too because of daylight savings time. I don't know if you guys have the same.
It's funny
going on.
We do. And
I can't believe what an hour does to mess with me.
I'm more affected in the fall than I am in the spring for some reason. And it's funny. I'm so affected. And I'm a 5 a.m. workout guy, and I'm in bed, 9:30 at night.
Okay.
My kids make fun of me because I have a little thing that goes off my phone. I have a timer that says, okay, it's time to go to bed, Aaron.
Yep.
Right? And they know it's dad's bedtime. But in the fall, it got so bad that I actually began to put in my calendar like notes of when it's happening. And so every year my calendar notifies me, and it's like, here's what happened last year, and I began to track it, and it's consistent.
Really?
Yeah. So
did you ever try, like I was thinking about, what if I tried a little merge, where like maybe the week before I start to do maybe like just a 10, 15 minute change and just see if I could maybe merge into it a little bit better. Because it hits me both ways. I cannot believe it that in 1 hour.
I'm hoping they just do away with it.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Something about the kids in school is why they can't change the clocks back like that.
So, let's talk about that though, about presentation. I mean, I think this is one that in society, everybody kind of wants to be their own person, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, I would love to wear I don't own pajama pants, but I mean, the kind that I'm thinking of, the kind that people wear to Walmart. Like I don't own those kind of pajama pants.
You're going to laugh.
You do?
Can I tell you something?
No.
My alter ego, who the person I want to be when I retire, I don't know if it'll ever happen, is the Big Lebowski.
Nice.
The dude.
Okay. Who doesn't want to be the dude?
I want to grow my hair out and walk around with a white Russian in a bathrobe.
There you go. We'll know that Aaron's given up. He's back to the first stratum.
He's done. He's out.
He's cooked. But seriously, we all want to be an individual, right? I mean, that's something that's one of our rights here in the United States. Yep. I mean, that's not listed like that, but we have the pursuit of happiness. We can do what we want. But presentation, how you show up matters. And the audience that you're playing to, it matters. And so talk about how that plays into all of this. Cause that's really, to me, that, I mean, you actually put it in with the health presentation, emotional control, kind of almost bundle into to one area.
Yeah. Personal appearance is the performance-based skill. And everybody goes, oh, you're going to tell me how to dress. It's like, no, it's not how you dress. It is, there's a small portion of it that is, but it's about how you present yourself to the world. And we know through psychology that our emotions are contagious. We know that people's subconscious are making decisions on us within 500 milliseconds.
Yep.
You know, and we understand that when we walk into a room, if we are not emotionally ready for that room and ready to present ourselves to that world, we could literally affect the meeting, the people, the interaction, every part of that. And so, you know, the one thing that we do try to teach is, you know, how are you showing up? And there's a process that's part of the introduction. We have 9 different sessions, right? And the first one is, you know, how we defined it, how we measure it, and we built tools for your teams to use and put it into your organization culture. One of the big things is how we show up as leaders. It's not just about leadership. It's about how we show up as family members, how we show up as friends. And there was a thing I learned at a very young age from my dad. And I was, I was playing baseball, obviously. And, I was 9, 10 years old. And I was out and, shortstop and kicking the dirt and watching the butterflies waving to my mom in the crowd. And a ball get hit to me, I'd miss it. And I remember the one time that happened, I came off the field. My dad was always at the fence and he gave me this.
Yep.
Over here, right? And he said, Aaron, what's that line, that white line there? I said, it's the foul line. It's, out of bounds and bounds, the field of play. He goes, oh, okay. He said, well, what happens when you cross over that line? I said, well, I'm in the game. He goes, exactly. He goes, that line, when you cross it, means you're in the game, which means that you're accountable to your team, which means nothing else outside of these lines matters. And your focus needs to be on the game. Be there for your team. Play your best, but focus. I said, roger that. Okay, got it. That lesson carried with me. What my dad gave me there, by the way, was a visual cue. Mm-hmm. And that lesson carried with me throughout my life. And that is something that we teach today as far as we call them transitions. Mm-hmm. And it's very powerful. It's a simple act, but it's so powerful. Before I walked in this door, I used thresholds as my transition visual cue. I'll look at a door and I'll say, okay, what am I walking into? Who on the other side of that door needs me? What are they looking for me to bring to the table? What's the emotions on the other side of that door? And how am I presenting myself as I walk through that threshold? Because we're all bringing baggage. I don't care who you are. Right. But we've got to be able to transition from the bad meeting that just happened to the people that need us beyond that threshold. And so that's set up very well for the business world. And
I'm going to work on that. I'm going to use the threshold. I love that example.
And it's just 5 seconds and nobody really notices because you sort of it's just before you walk through the door, you hit it and you go, okay, that thing doesn't matter. These people matter. Here's what I'm doing now. But also, at home, I'll sit in my driveway. My wife makes fun of me, but she'll know that I'm either not done with work yet or I'm on a call and I will sit in my car until I'm done. And I use the garage door as my threshold. I'm a businessman now. Yep. And as I cross that threshold, now I'm husband, now I'm dad, and you have to be able to transition into that person because how many of us have walked into our homes and I'm not, listen, we all try to be as consistent as possible.
Sure.
Shit's going to happen. But how many of us have walked into our homes and negatively impacted the people we love because we brought in all the bad shit that we dealt with that day? Not fair. And so we've got to be able to hit that transition. That's a great little skill, little tactical application we can use every day. And one more part of it is on Zooms. We do the virtual calls. That little self-view window that pops on before you get on.
That's your threshold?
That's your threshold.
Love it.
Like, okay, like what do I look like? Because our faces translate everything.
You bet.
And we've got to be really cognizant of that.
So let me ask you this though. So I love those cues. I'm going to try them. I'm going to use them. Hopefully I'll be disciplined to use them all the time. But there's a reality check in there too of you got a lot of things going on. I got a lot of things going on. When we walk in that front door, we're not always just dad and just husband. We're still working.
Right.
And so how do you vacillate when you know that, what, I've got the next 20 minutes to be dad, but then I got to run upstairs and get back on a Zoom call. How do you play that and then keep that emotional control going?
Luckily our house has a lot of doors.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I'm not going to say I have the answers for that. I mean, when I'm having a bad day, I'll try to transition as I walk in the house, and I'm going to try to say, "Hey, how's everybody doing?" I'll try to produce the joy, produce the energy. And if I just can't get there, and there are days you just can't get there, you're just so beaten down by what happened that I'll just say I just need to go upstairs and get changed. And say, of course I'll say hello to everybody. Like, so I just need 10 minutes, and I'll go up there and I have a chair up in my bedroom, and I'll just sit there, and I'll just either just work through some sort of breathing technique. If I'm tired too, if I just need like a neurological reset, I'll do like a 13-minute yoga nidra type of meditation. But I'll just try to, as best as possible, reset. And I do have a home office, so sometimes you have to make the announcement. I got one more meeting. I got one more call.
Right.
I got to do it. But there's a discipline to it. And, if you can begin to develop that discipline, you can get better for the people that you really care about.
I'm going to get into this whole consistent application and discipline piece with you in just a second here. But when you talked about thresholds, something that just came up for me is that we go to a couple of different churches. One of the churches, over the exit, as you're walking out, it says servant's entrance. This is where you're going out to serve others, serve the world.
That's pretty cool.
Another church though had one that says Judas left early too. Okay. And so I just thought that was funny. And of course that one is funny too. Okay. I get that it's funny, but funny different thresholds there, right? Of what's this one telling you to do, and the other one, whether we're joking or whatever, but still that reminder that when you're going into that room or going out into that world, that's what you're supposed to do.
1000%.
So
1000%. And like I always, one of the things I'll teach, especially to the younger generation, that maybe they're just showing up and maybe they're just a little disheveled, like they just, and I'll say pretend that you're in a movie. Pretend that the second you step out of the house, the mentality is the world is watching you. And it doesn't matter. Might be your neighbor, might be the bus driver. Who cares? Pretend that matters. And now dress for the occasion. Now dress. When by the way, dressing up and being presentable to the world was always important to me, especially when I came into the world of sitting across the table from executives making deals, which I had no business doing, but I wore a suit. I always wore a suit. That suit bought me the credibility I needed to just get the opportunity. Well, I may not have said the right shit, but it got me the opportunity. It gave me some credibility. It also did this thing that I learned about a couple of years later, which was enclothed cognition, which is a psychological phenomenon of how our clothes make us feel. Played sports. When you put the uniform on, you're not thinking about bacon bread, right? You're all right. We're going to win. We're like, you get into this drive mentality. Same thing happens in the business world. You put the suit on and you're going into a meeting, there's a click. And there was actually a study out of Northeastern, I think it was like 2012. This is old. And they looked at 3 different groups. One group wore suits, one group wore sweatpants, and the other group wore like casual clothes, jeans or something like that. And they made them do a negotiating game, pricing negotiating game. And they also tested the blood level, like the blood biometrics.
Oh, okay.
And what came out of that study was the individuals who wore the suits not only had the best negotiations, but they had the highest profit margin in those negotiations against their peers. They also had the highest level of testosterone, their blood. The other groups, not so much. And so it just goes to show you that there's this phenomenon, this psychological phenomenon that really ramps you up biologically for an event. And so let's use that to our advantage. That's the competitive edge.
Well, that's awesome, because that's the side of that you can control.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the other piece of it is we can't control the feelings of others.
Right.
Right. And so what I always think when I think of appearance, when I think of judgmentalness or judging, we're all being judged, right? And sometimes it's very nefarious. Sometimes it's somebody's judging us based on our our race, our sex, our religion, right, and things that they shouldn't be judging us on. But
especially this day and age.
But the amygdala was designed to protect us. Okay, so if you walk in here and you look somewhat different than me, my initial reaction, my brain that I can't even control, my amygdala is going to fire something off that just says danger, potential danger, potential warning, right? Now, we're in a modern day. It's a little bit different. Alligators aren't chasing us every day or anything like that. But my conscious brain then can take over and go, oh, that's Aaron, whatever. Doesn't matter. But I always say to people, like, why even bother? Why waste the stroke? Right. Why waste the stroke? So if you want to go to that meeting in pajama pants, okay, understand that you want that, but there's a trade-off to that.
1,000%.
You're going to walk into the room and the person's going to go, pajama pants?
Bye.
Right. Well, or at least they just shot you down from baseline to -2.
Yep.
Right. Because their amygdala fired off and said, what the hell? Danger, weird, off, whatever it might say.
Yeah.
Now, you might be some Mensa member, and you all of a sudden now convince me that what you have to say is the smartest thing ever. But I had
you're walking around in pajama pants,
and I had to start off at -2 before I even let you get to baseline. Why would I waste that? Why would I risk that? Right. And so that's something that I always think, like, what's it worth? Right. What's it worth to do that? Is it worth it? And I'm not saying that I know the answer to that. I'm just saying these are human drives. These are human responses that are built into us. We're not going to change those. Right.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important. Like when we talk about judgment, we're being judged on, are you a threat? Are you a friend? Your attractiveness to, your competency. It was Nalini and Body and Robert Rosenthal who ran the experiment on perceptual judgment and the thin slices. I think it was, can't remember the book that came from, but anyway, these were the things that our subconscious is judging people on in that less than 500ths of a second time frame. And so we have no chance. Like how we show up is so important. And that's why, our body language, the part of the competitive edge is, how do we get that other person's subconscious to really accept us right off the bat? And it is about, walking in and smiling, showing the teeth, open hands, open palms, open body language, showing that there's no weapons, you're not walking in with your hands in your pocket, right? But that
Michigan's an open carry state. So you're okay. We can
hey, how you doing?
We can show it. No, we can just have it right on the outside.
Yeah. So, these are some of the things when I talk about that in Joe Navarro book, what our bodies are saying. It's a great way to learn how to show up, not just how to read people. So.
Great. So the whole book, it's leadership, it's a team development system. And you and Kelly have parlayed this into going into organizations and teaching folks. So walk us through what an example looks like and maybe a typical type of company that you would work with and what's the outcomes. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's generally teams, usually it's the leaders that spot the opportunity first. They've either read the book or they've just been in my network. There's no real advertising here. This is very organic. Wrote the book and people start talking to you and like, what do you have a program? And it's like, yeah, the criteria the criteria is the program, right? Is the book. And so anywhere from pharma to finance to industrial manufacturers, like anybody who has teams that believe with the knowledge of how the human body and mind work and improve their performance, like that's who dives into this. And it's way different. We've gotten the feedback that it is way different than any professional development that they've done in the past. This isn't motivation. We are literally installing tactical applications and the knowledge of how the human body and mind work so that you can get a competitive edge. Because the science and the data is pretty clear. It's not a person's ability that limits their accomplishments or their achievements. When we truly look at it, it's their understanding of how the mechanisms of the mind and body work. When they apply it, they optimize their performance. And now you have a framework to follow. Now we're dialing this thing in. And so the results have been great. I mean, I wish I could show you all the emails and text messages that we've received after we've done these things. Words like life-changing, words like you saved my relationship, words like I have a better, like my health is better. Like it spans the whole thing. It's not just like people look at high performance. They think that word has to deal with just athletes.
Being a better athlete. Yeah.
Right. And when they really dive into it, it's really about being a better human. And when people can be better humans, all of a sudden people look at them and go, you did something different.
Yep.
I like what you did. Teach me, show me, mentor me.
Well, I think this is just so appropriately timed because AI, we're using it. We're training on it. We're teaching it. We're helping people with it. We're helping with security around it, all those different things. And so many people are worried that AI is going to take their job. Okay. Well, I can tell you this, that the people that I'm dealing with in AI, they're all the high performers. They're the people who are taking this and putting discipline to it and using it every day, doing the push-ups, as it relate to artificial intelligence. And I think that, having programs like yours, having books like yours are going to be even more important because the things that are going to be commoditized are just running rampant. And so you're going to have to continue to evolve yourself as a human being in order to participate and thrive in what I would call the most disruptive technological era in the history of the world.
And you nailed it. And it was McKinsey that put it out. I think it was last year's report, their global,
McKinsey, I think. It was.
McKinsey, their global, forget what the name of the report was, but they honed in on AI. And they honed in on the number one thing that we need as humans to focus on. It was human performance. And they said, AI is going to literally take away the value of knowledge because everybody's going to have knowledge.
Knowledge will be the commodity.
Right. However, when we look at our human performance, how we interact with each other, our spiritual end of how we are as humans, our physical aspect of humans, that's where our true value is going to come into play because knowledge is going to be just there. Like everybody's going to have the same knowledge you have, I have, right? But how we use that knowledge and how we apply it, human performance is the key. And that I saw that I was like enthralled. I was like, this is great. Somebody's going to validate what the hell I'm actually doing here, right? And by the way, going back to the the things that we do for organizations, when we look at, we have 9 sessions, and the first 3 sessions, they focus on the human. Second 3 sessions, they focus on the team. And the third 3 sessions focuses on the organization. So there's this really slow build that they all build upon each other. And we got through a couple of organizations with this, and the result was like the high functioning team. There was these high functioning individuals, and now they started interacting with each other as a team. And this team became this big part of this, a massive mover of this organization. And they were like, okay, can we sign you up for another round? I'm like, yes, we can. Absolutely.
Well, but you're also leveraging technology and AI.
Yes.
And you're building a platform.
Yes. Interview.
Let's talk about that. Interview.
INNER.
I like that.
Yeah. So when we look at organizations and we look at low performers, by the way, we did study low performers when we built this framework out, because that was the one key that everybody sort of overlooked. When people look at high performance, they always look at the high performers. What are they doing? How are they doing different? We started looking at the low performers, saying, wait a second, these are the gaps. These is why they failed. Like these are the things that we're missing. And when we look at low performance in organizations and low performing people, we realize that the root cause isn't that the employee, it's the fact that the employee got through the interview process because the interviewer just either wasn't good enough, wasn't skilled enough, or just didn't ask the right questions, or might have got fooled. Or they liked them so much, they put a square peg in a round hole. So there's a couple variations of why that happens. And so we began to look at our framework, and we said, well, why don't we fix this? Why don't we use the Stratum 9 framework and embed it into this interview tool where organizations can now build a job description based on what truly matters. These, like we said in the beginning of our conversation, you can literally take a role and identify out of the 45 performance-based skills, the critical skills necessary to be high performing in the role. A firefighter would need problem solving, boldness, critical thinking, all these things that make them really good firefighters. And so we take that and we can build a job description off of that. Candidates come in, it screens the resumes in a non-biased fashion, by the way, because AI does cause bias. And we're going to be the first to produce a non-biased AI with the framework we're building. And then bring it into the interview where we're generating career-based questions, which are critical. You've got to be good at the career stuff. But then the interviewer is, and the admin is selecting the critical performance-based skills for the role and the critical performance-based skills for their culture. And so now you've a holistic approach to onboarding an employee. Do they have good career skills? Yeah, great. But you put 2 engineers next to each other who both went to the same school, got the same grades, same teachers, and they get out, one outperforms the other.
You betcha.
Guess what? It wasn't because of the career skills. It was the performance-based skills. And so now we interview for the performance-based skills. We develop questions for that. We develop questions for the cultural skills. And all these questions are developed off of interrogation methods.
Ethical
interrogation methods. Absolutely.
You're not waterboarding.
We're not waterboarding anybody. We're using a massive mix from all the experts out there of how they interview people. And so we're able to embed this in there. We have AI working in the background. This is a human in the loop system. So this is not AI making decisions. The human always makes the decisions. The AI is just like showing them what it's seeing, what it's picking up. It's reading the candidates, it's listening. And during the interview, you have these very skillful questions now, but as the candidate is talking, it's saying, here's a follow-up. They mentioned this, ask them this. And so now you're becoming this interviewer who really is like, you're pacing, like you're in this thing and you're really gaining the knowledge out of this candidate that you need. And if 4 of us interview the same candidate, it aggregates everything, puts out an end overview that says, hey, this person has a 65% chance of being high performing the role. Here's why. Here's the EQ section of what we picked up. And also, if you hire them, here's their pathway for performance. Here are the gaps they're going to have. Here's the coaching they're going to need. Here is the education or outside education they're going to need, and everything else that in between. And then we then allow that organization, if they want, and push it into our new and upcoming agentic performance-based app, which is going to have everything from your 5 daily wins to all the performance-based skills and tactical applications on how to improve those skills with a live coach that's based on the framework of the Ninth Stratum.
Great. So in the meantime, though, before that app is available, they can get a hold of you. We would encourage anybody that's in Vistage or any of the executive peer groups to tell your leadership that you want Aaron to come in and do a talk. In fact, I'm going to be, this is my version of the talk today because I'm missing your talk tomorrow locally here in Michigan. But they can see you there. There's some great YouTube stuff with you out there, the book, the programs. Yep. I mean, there's a lot of ways to interact with you and get a piece of this.
I'm not great at social media either, so
that's okay.
Just I'm doing my best.
You have a friend who's excellent at it.
Yes, though. I know I do. He's got to help me a little bit more.
He is. Yeah. Want to give him a little plug?
You can reach out to Johnny Drinks and learn how to make a nice espresso martini.
There you go. Sure. And then and you can hit up Johnny Drinks to get Aaron's contact info.
Exactly.
They'll put you in touch.
Exactly.
So, anything else you want to make sure that we cover?
No, that's it. I mean, the book's available. We have an audio book too, which actually has Kel asking some questions at the end of each chapter to do a little bit deeper dive. And, we're on LinkedIn and this thing is just getting started. We're having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. I just love the differentiation. I love the focus on the human. I love the focus on being a high performer. It's just, it's a great differentiator for you and the coaching that you're doing. And I just wish you all the best.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
You got it. Thanks, Matt.
This episode of the BLTNT podcast is sponsored by Auxium, business IT and cybersecurity designed to outsmart chaos. Empowered by Juniper Networks. Automate your network with Juniper Networks and the Mist AI platform, the world's first AI-driven wired and wireless network.